All right, let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, Vladimir, thank you so much for being with us today. Let me introduce you real quick here. Vladimir is the founder and CEO of Jitsu, an open source data ingestion engine. Prior to Jitsu, Vladimir built Get Intent, an ML-powered ad exchange. That sounds all incredibly smart, so I'm going to let you talk to us and share some of that brilliance with the rest of us. It's all you, sir.
Hi, thank you very much. Hi, everybody. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the different privacy regulations, which you probably know about, such as GDPR, DPA, CCPA. So that's a regulation, that's a laws, but I'm going to talk about them about them from technical perspective. So, and I guess why it's important to use. So if you're building an analytics platform or, like third-party analytics platform, or you building an analytics stack for your organization, that's those regulations basically says what kind of user data you can and cannot collect, depending on the user geography and user jurisdiction. So yeah, and I didn't build a presentation, but I built a website instead. So if you want to see what I'm going to see the content of my today's talk, just go to cookie.jitsu.com. Yeah, so sorry, no presentation, but the website is up. So about myself, at the moment, I'm the founder and the CEO of Jitsu. We're open source data ingestion platform. So if you need to get your data to ClickHouse or any other data warehouse, to any other data warehouse, probably Jitsu is the right tool for you. So you're probably interested what kind of analytics tools we're using at the moment. So we're using Jitsu, Postgres, DBT, Metabase, Prometheus, and Grafana. That's how we analyze our data about our customers internally. So prior to that, I've been a CTO of a company called Get Intent. We built an online advertising platform. So I was in charge of many things, but in terms of analytics, we built a pretty cool components which allowed us to analyze a lot of data. It's been built on top of Hadoop, and a few years after we choose Hadoop as a main stack, we slowly started to migrate to ClickHouse, and we almost replaced Hadoop with the ClickHouse. So if you have a really huge data set and you're using Hadoop, ClickHouse is a probably good alternative. At least it's much better. And before that, I worked in a few other companies, which also has been related to analytics, online advertising, and so on and so on. So yeah, let's get started. I don't have that many time, so I'll try to go through my talk really fast. So let's get started and talk about the regulations. So probably heard the acronym GDPR. So GDPR, it stands for General Data Protection Regulation. It's a law in European Union that was adopted, I think, 2016. So it's all started in 2016, and it came into effect a few years ago, like 2 years ago, something like that. Yeah, in 2019, 2 years ago, and basically it started a chain reaction in the world. So more and more countries started to introduce similar laws. So basically, what GDPR says. GDPR regulates a lot of things regarding to like user privacy, user data, and so on and so on. But among other things, GDPR says what you can and cannot collect about the users on your websites, applications, and so on and so on. So we're going to cover only this aspect of GDPR, not others. So, and probably you all, I mean, if you're not familiar with GDPR, with the law itself, probably you see all these, cookie banners on the website asking if you're okay or not okay with the website collecting data or something like that. That's basically GDPR. That's why you see those banners. This law dictates dictates that you need to ask the consent of users from user about using users' data. So let's take a look about other things except of GDPR. What's right here now. So we have GDPR, as I mentioned. That's how this whole thing started. It's a European Union, so it's pretty huge. It covers 17% of all GDP. So if you care about size of basically in most cases, whatever you do, probably European Union is a huge market for you. So probably you should care. The other law which came after GDPR, it's called CCPA. It's a California local law, so it covers California, pretty substantial. I mean, it's not the whole United States, it's just one state, but California is still very huge. And the other thing which is fairly new, it's called DPA. It's a UK's version of GDPR. Basically, when they left European Union, they just copied GDPR almost 100%, and now it's called DPA. So, but essentially it's the same thing. And other regulations are coming. So in New York, a few years ago, the lawmakers tried to introduce NYPA. It's a New York equivalent of CCPA. They failed, but they're going to vote once again. I don't remember the specifics, but maybe it's coming into effect in 2023 or 24. So there is a CPRA. It's a second version of CCPA. Is going to happen sooner or later, I guess, yeah, in 2 years. And also there is a equivalent of GDPR in China. It's called PECR, and actually it took effect yesterday. I'm not going to talk about this one. I mean, it's obviously huge, but China is a different country, so I don't know much about it. But just for you, yeah, it's probably important. So okay, let's get to the content of those laws. Like what kind of what basically they allow you to do and not disallow you to do. So let's take a step back and just think about user data we collect on our applications, websites, and so on and so on. So there are two types of data we usually collect. One is anonymous users. It's basically everybody who using your applications or coming to your website and haven't signed up for your service. So it's usually a lot of those users, and your relationship with those users governed by the law of user allocation. Like usually if it's user from the European Union, you probably should follow the laws for the European Union laws. If it's user from Russia, China, or California, you need to follow those laws. So, and at some point, when users signed up for the service, if you're selling your services at all, at this point, usually user provides the email address or phone number or any other type of ID, which is associated directly from this user with this user. And at this point, user usually agrees to terms of services, privacy policy, or whatever terms you usually agree when you sign up for service. So, and when user is registered, what can and basically the data you can collect about this user, it's regulated by terms of services or privacy policy. I wouldn't say you could put anything in there, but like usually you could put some sort of terms that says basically if the user wants to use your service, you can collect his email address and so on and so on. So in this talk, I'm going to focus only on the anonymous users. So on the users from the user who haven't signed up for your service, whom you don't know their ID, like email or phone number, and so on and so on. So usually how you can ID those users, it's either through cookies, HTTP cookies. I'm going to talk about this later, or about fingerprint or with fingerprinting, which is I'm going to cover later. So you think a few things. So here I'm going to focus only on CCPA and GDPR. So once again, CCPA, it's a regulation from California. GDPR is from European Union. And I'm going to cover only them because all other regulations are either too exotic, such as thing in Russia and in China, or is the same as the CCPA, CCPA or GDPR. So I'm going to cover only those both, but whatever we're going to implement for those both, probably going to work for other regulations as well. So like similarities and difference. So in my opinion, CCPA makes much more sense because it's fairly new, and probably they see the mistakes that lawmakers did when they introduced the GDPR. So it's just a little bit better. So what they have in common? They both cover the personal data. So they say about how the personal data is should be collected and should not be collected, and how the user should be able to make a choice about the personal data collection. And that's they have in common. But however, they have a different understanding what is the personal data and what companies should comply. So here there is like a few table. I'm not going to go through all of those tables or all of those differences, but the most important one is the jurisdiction of the law. So GDPR basically says that all companies having users in European Union should comply, but CCPA saying that basically all large companies making revenue or having a lot of assets should comply to this law. So if you're a small startup, probably you can just ignore CCPA for the time being. And then I think the other significant difference between GDPR and CCPA, it's a opt-in versus opt-out. So GDPR says that if you want to collect any data about user, you need to first ask the user permission. So it's an opt-in law. CCPA is different. So you can just collect the data, but you need to provide a button or an option for user to opt out and stop collecting the data. So let's see, let's talk about technicalities. So how we can comply to those laws and what exactly should we do if we're implementing an analytics stack or analytics analytics component in our application. So this is how it should work, in my opinion. And important thing I need to highlight here. So I'm not a lawyer, so I haven't even consulted with lawyers a lot about this stuff. So how I came up with this, I just reverse engineered whatever Facebook, Google, and other large companies doing, and I suppose they consulted the lawyers, and they know what's happening. So so how it should work. So first of all, if user coming on the website, you need to understand if the jurisdiction of this user. Should you comply some local laws at all? And if not, what's and yes, which one? So you just understand that this user coming from UK and European Union. So you show the cookie banner if the user agrees to this agrees to the policy. You just collect the usual things such as cookie IP address and so on and so on. And if user didn't agree, you can use alternative method of user identification. The same thing about California. So, okay, so quick, I think I'm running out of time. So let me go through other slides really quickly, and hopefully I'll have some time to answer your questions. So jurisdiction. So can you decide jurisdiction of the user based on IP address? I mean, IP addresses are not 100% accurate. User can be European Union resident, but traveling to other country. User can be using VPN and so on and so on. But a short answer, yes, you can, because that's what large companies doing. If you check how Facebook and Google decides if the cookie banner should be shown to the user or not, it's based on IP address. So yes, you can. So what else? if user coming from the European Union, you need to show the GDPR cookie banner. That's the cookie banner you see all over the places. And you need to ask about what kind of, you need to allow user to opt out from certain things you collecting about this user. The important thing you should know, you can deny service if user didn't opt into analytics cookie, marketing cookies, or any other types of user collection, except of strictly necessary cookies or ID identification. Because without that, your website or service probably not going to work. So CCPA, it's a little bit different. So you don't need a banner. It's an opt-out regulation and applies only to large companies. And you need to show the you need to have a button or section in your configuration settings that allows people to opt out from user data collection. So what else is here? So that's about cookies, about identification of the user. The other question is, can you collect the IP addresses? So the answer is you probably can, but you can collect the first three octets of IP addresses, first three numbers. And that's usually enough if you're using IP address for geolocating the user and so on. And you can collect IP addresses for security purposes. If you're running a firewall or something like that, that's fine. You can do that. But, again, consult a lawyer if you're making a final decision about that. So, and a few interesting details I wanted to share. If user didn't consent to cookies and you don't know how to ID him, you can't ID user with the cookies. So what other methods you can use? So it's three of them. It's called fingerprinting. So fingerprinting is basically hashing, is basically a combination of some properties of user which can be unique. So it's usually IP address and user agent. So there are three types of fingerprinting, which are simple. It's an IP address plus user agent plus salt, and salt is recycled on daily basis, just hash of IP address plus user agent, and the same thing, but instead of full IP address, you take the first three octets. So few numbers here. So the first method, it's very standard. So there are companies like Plausible.io or Fathom Analytics. They usually ask people, they implement the Google Analytics alternative, which don't require the show the cookie banner consent. So they're using this way of fingerprinting, which is hash of IP address plus user agent plus daily plus salt, which they recycle on daily basis. So I ran a quick test on some data set, which we have, and the actual accuracy of this method compared to cookie ID is 93%. That's pretty good. But the thing is, it's the user ID, since the salt is recycled every day, the user ID will rotate every day, even if the user is the same. So it's good for calculating things like daily uniques per pages, etc., but it's not good for converting for calculating things such conversion attribution, cohort analysis, basically whatever takes more than overlaps with more than 1 day of user journey. And this method is okay with GDPR and CCPA. As I mentioned, it's used by a few companies such as Plausible and Fathom. So, you can read the description on their website, but they hire the lawyers to do the audit and so on and so on. So it's, as long as they think it's okay with GDPR, probably, that's really the case. Another thing is calculating just hash of IP address plus user agent. So accuracy is 93%. It's the same as the previous one, but it's not going to, since this we don't have a daily salt. It's okay for calculating things like cohort conversion attribution, but this is a gray area with GDPR and CCPA. Probably you cannot do this if you didn't obtain the user consent. And the second one is if you replace the IP address with just first 3 octets of IP address. That's probably okay with GDPR because you're not collecting the full IP address and you're not using this. But surprisingly, the accuracy is not that bad. So in previous examples, it's been 93%. It's 94%. Here it's like 92. So probably that's the way to go if you didn't update the consent from user in GDPR jurisdiction, or you don't want to do this. So it's my last slide. So the conclusion. So first, if you want to collect the data about users, and probably you do if you're running any online business, just don't show the cookie banner everywhere. You don't need to. It's very bad user experience, and probably you're annoyed with those cookie banners. Just show it where if the user coming from the European Union or CCPA or California, if you want to provide the opt-in. And the second conclusion, if user didn't consent to using the cookies, or you just don't want to ask anything about users, you still have your way how to collect the data. I mean, it's probably not going to be very accurate, and probably it's not going to be 100% accurate as cookies, but still it's going to be pretty good, and it will serve its purpose if you want to calculate the high level attributions, such as high level numbers, such as number of uniques per page, per day, and so on and so on.
All right, I'll go end it out. Thank you, everybody, and I'll catch you soon.
Thank you.
All right, bye now.